And if you think that you're going to get more freedom because you started your own gig, man, think again, because you're in for it. It's going to be tough. And this isn't to be Debbie Downer. This is just the truth.
Some knocks me down, I'll get back up. I will go hard. Someone new falls in love with you, but I will go on. Scissors and strings do many things, but they won't keep me tied to you.
Hey, got something really cool I wanted to run by and let you know what's going on. So I'm starting a group that will start taking a deep dive into each one of these episodes. So we'll collectively come together and talk about the shows, talk about the guests. I'll be bringing back some of the guests to do some Q&A sessions and really take a further dive into their story, their journey, the episode, talk about, maybe some of the things you wish I would have asked on the episodes, do some Q&A sessions and the like. As a friend put it to me, it's really like a book club, but for the podcast. So a couple times a week, we'll go in, we'll break down the favorite shows of the week, and have cool discussions around everything that we've heard, we've learned, and want to know about their journey. Some of these guests will come in and they'll teach part of, what makes them awesome at what they do. And then, as always, I'll be providing regular value and content in this group. It's really cool because this only is going to cost $5 a month to join this group. And you'll be able to come in, interact with everybody else in there. So I'll put a link right in the show notes for this that you can jump in, come have a conversation with us, and we will really deep dive into each one of these episodes and help us all rise up together. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's going to be a great show today. Having the show wasn't something I started out to do, but the day I found out somebody wanted to really sponsor the show was a really, really cool experience. So, guys, I want you to take some time to go check out Point Blank Safety Services and their new nonprofit, Blue Family Fund. These guys are doing some really, really cool things, and Stacy McGovern, who's the CEO over there, has been a dear friend, and she was a guest on the show. But these guys are literally taking, the off-duty officers and putting them out in security guard role. And here's what's cool about it is, as they're protecting our lives, they don't make a whole lot of money in that regard. No first responders are paid for the value they provide for our safety and our health and taking care of us. So these guys, Stacy and her team over at Point Blank Safety Services have really found a cool way to give back to these officers by helping them provide an additional income so they can continue to support and protect us. So do me a favor, guys. Seriously, go check out pointblanksafety.com and then go look at their nonprofit, which is Blue Family Fund. Now, this nonprofit was created because of the success of Point Blank Safety Services. They wanted to give back to the families of fallen officers and be able to give scholarships away to the families of current, police officers. So do me a favor. It would mean the world to me if you would go out and help support this show by supporting Point Blank Safety Services and their nonprofit Blue Family Fund. Just tell them Donnie has sent you. You heard it on Donnie Success Champions, and Stacy will take a tremendous and amazing care of you. Thanks, guys.
I've been thinking through watching my life go on, staring at the wall in my way.
Hey guys, it's going to be another fun episode as we get geared up to talk about, a topic that keeps popping up a lot in my Facebook group. If you haven't, check it out. It's Donnie Success Champions on Facebook. Come hang out with us. We have a lot of fun conversations, talk about the shows, and, it's just a really, really good time. But a topic that keeps popping up is, how do you chase your passion? How do you chase your dreams when you still work a full-time job? Stay tuned. It's going to be fun, guys. Welcome to the show, guys. Another fun episode of Donnie Success Champions. It is Kick-Ass Fridays, and let me tell you, I love doing these Friday shows because it's always about stuff that I want to talk about. And a lot of times, these episodes come from my Patreon followers, or they come from conversations that happen within my Facebook group called Donnie Success Champions. You should come hang out with us so you can hear about all the fun things we talk about in the Facebook Lives and things that I do in there on Fridays. But, the big conversation that keeps popping up in the group lately is, how do you, chase your dreams? How do you go for it? How do you create that life where you're living on your own terms, but you still have a full-time job? So that's what I'm going to focus on in this episode is here's the biggest disclaimer I'm going to give you. I'm going to 100% tell you don't do it the way I did it, because the way I did it, man, it was rough, let me tell you. But I'll walk you through some strategies of some friends of mine and how they did it successfully. I'll walk you through how I did it and really try and give you some key strategies to help you take your hobby, something you love to do, or some endeavor that you're trying to get started and get that to transition into your full-time gig. So here's my story. Here's what I did. And like I said, don't do it my way, guys. I was a little crazy is a good way of putting it. Maybe a lot crazy because of what I did. But so here's what I did is, I got tired of working for other people. And if I'm completely honest, is I'm just not good with people telling me what I should do with my days, my times, my hours. I mean, it's the main reason me and the Marine Corps did not get along so well is, somebody was always telling you where to be, what to do, and follow the, some sort of rules. Well, me and rules just don't seem to get along. It's just not something that I've ever enjoyed doing is having somebody say, be here by a certain time, go home at a certain time, eat here, whatever. Right? I just want to run freedom. And I will say that, finding sales careers did give me a sense of that freedom. Because, as a sales guy, they don't expect you to be in the office, right? They don't expect you to work at a desk in a traditional 8 to 5 aspect. They expect you to be working, don't get me wrong. But, my working, most times was out and about networking and meeting with people and just having some really, really fun conversations. If I was sitting at my desk at any sales jobs, then, it was really tough to grow the business unless I was hammering out some cold calls. So most of my time in my 8 to 5 as a sales guy, it was, out meeting with people, networking, getting to know people, talking to clients, talking to prospects, and constantly out among people. So there was this sense of freedom. There was this sense of I could do whatever I wanted, but there was always that, you have to produce. And I say that in a weird caveat is having to produce is like, you have quotas and they have numbers and you have expectations that you have to meet along the way. And it's hard to manage a sales career and make money if you're not out there shaking hands and kissing babies. There's also the discipline of actually doing it and not falling in the trap of, it's 3:00 in the afternoon, I can go home. So there was a lot of learning curves, especially early in my sales career, because I wanted that freedom, right? I wanted to be able to go where I wanted when I want. I did the corporate America gig, the big corporate America gig, on high rises and suit wearings and those type of times, but it was always reporting and working for somebody. So when I finally found sales, it was understanding that there is freedom, but it was also being grown up enough, because I was in my early 20s, being grown up enough to understand that I still have to work a full-time job, which was tough at times because, immaturity kicks in your youth and, you want to do your own thing whenever on your own terms. But being in that role, the more and longer I did sales, the more I lost that vibe of, or the ability to work for somebody else. It's like they say, I believe, that once you start your own business, it's very hard to be employable by somebody else because you've got this mindset of how you should run and work your day. And the same thing kind of happens in a sales role because you're continually doing things and you're getting more and more freedoms, especially if you start getting successful in sales, because then they really stop worrying about where you are and what you're doing with your day. So, my sales career, I've always had that ability to set my own hours. As long as my numbers were good, as long as my times were right, and I didn't disappear for months at a time, I could always build a successful book of business. And that's what I did. But a lot of people who want to start a company and jump into this crazy world of entrepreneurism, they're in regular jobs. They're working that 8 to 5, trying to figure out, how can they turn off a career or a job that they don't like, or maybe it's not a passion for them or anything, but actually turn that into something that's fun, that they'd love to do, and really go for it. Well, after all those years of being that sales guy, I thought I knew enough to jump out and just go. So that's what I did. I jumped out and went. I had no safety nets along the way. And I'll tell you, those first months, and up until I really started this podcast, it was tough, really tough, trying to figure out how to run a business. I mean, this is not an easy thing to do, especially when the only world you know and understand is sales. And I've said on other episodes, I really thought that just being a sales guy was going to make me a successful business owner. And boy, was that stupid thinking. So the first thing I'll tell you is if you're going to really try and become this new fad of entrepreneurs or this new buzzword of entrepreneurs, then you've got to do it in a smart way. You've got to do it in a way where you're building things up enough that you can justify walking away from career. And this isn't my phrase, but I'm going to talk a lot about it. Gary Vee, who talks about this stuff, and you guys have never gone and seen Gary Vaynerchuk or seen him talk, the dude cusses 20 times worse than I do, but he's really pushing this entrepreneur phase and trying to get people to jump into that world, and tells you every once in a while, that you should maintain whatever you do, then start a side gig. And I hate, just for the record, I hate the phrase side hustle. It's not the side word I hate. It's the word hustle. Anytime somebody says hustle, I feel like somebody's getting screwed out of something, right? You're hustling them. It just brings back thoughts of dice games on a street corner or something, So I don't want you to create a side hustle. I want you to create a side business, right? Something that you can get a tangible of. But Gary says it this way: your 8 to 5 pays the bills. It's your 7 to 2 that build your legacy. I talk to a lot of people, whether it's in my Facebook group or whether it's out networking, and a lot of people have this thing, something on the side that they really would love to do. Some sort of passion. I talk to a ton of podcasters, that are, they love podcasting so much that they're trying to turn that into their full-time gig. And, even podcasting is very difficult to turn into a revenue source. That's why, we did things like, create the content development package so we could monetize things outside of the show. And that's, doing very, very, very well. So if you're looking for that, go to DonnieBovine.com, and there's a link to the content, development package that we have. You can see some of the things we're doing to monetize the show, but doing this podcast, which is something that I absolutely totally love, took a while to figure out how do I make revenue with it. And if I, were to have bet my company at the beginning on just doing a podcast, it would have been really tough for my family to make this all work, because there's just not enough awareness of what you're doing for enough people showing up to justify making a lot of money with it. And I think a lot of people are in that boat. There's something they love to do, but they don't know how to generate enough revenue to turn into something more full-time. So as you're moving into this realm is another big portion is, really need to question yourself. Do you want to take something that you're truly passionate about, some sort of hobby, and turn it into a business? And the reason I ask that is it seems to me that a lot of people don't like to work. And I'm not busting chops here. I'm just speaking. A lot of people don't want to really bust your ass. And I know they say work your passion and you'll never work a day again in your life. Well, they're stupid. Whoever says that. It may not feel like work, because I can tell you, I love the podcast. Absolute my favorite thing to do, right? And that podcast may not feel like work, but let me assure you, it's a lot of damn work. I've got to record episodes. I've got to edit episodes. And I've got an editor. Joe Fallon is my editor, and he helps me out. He's freaking badass at doing it, right? With all the work. But I still got to coordinate with guests. I mean, there's a lot to it. So although it's fun, don't get me wrong, it's a passion of mine. And it's turning me revenue. But I want to challenge you that you need to really check hard and think long before you turn that passion into a full-time gig. Because what I don't want to have happen is whatever that passion is, I don't want you to end up doing so much work that you lose the passion for it. So imagine if painting is your thing and you're totally into paint, okay? And that's your absolute passion. It's your way to get away. It's your way to freedom. It's your way to unlock your mind and get that creative side of you really, really, really flowing. Not always, but a lot of times, as soon as you monetize that, and I'm not telling you don't sell your stuff or anything, but as soon as you turn that into your full-time gig, there is a big thing that you need to take into consideration, which is, that thing that you just monetized, that thing, that hobby that you just put dollars with, you're going to have to produce on a regular basis. Because if you don't have enough things to sell, then you won't be able to produce enough income to support yourself or your family. So when you turn that passion, that hobby, into a full-time career, now you have to do it all. So not only do you have to paint the picture, but you have to paint multiple pictures. You have to produce, and you have to put it on social media. You have to put it in traditional marketing, build out the websites. And I mean, you can pay people to do all this, but not a lot of people, when they jump out on their own first, have tons of money sitting aside to figure this all out, or to pay somebody else to do this. So as you're growing and moving through it, then it's a matter of you've got to do a lot of it on your own. And a lot of people don't want to go through that hassle of figuring everything out on your own. That's why, all these online courses are making people mince right now, because they believe that they can buy a course and it's going to teach them every step of the way to get them where they want. I'm just as guilty, guys. I bought a Facebook ads building thing for my coaching business, and I'll walk you through. I mean, it's great information, great knowledge, but I spent a couple weeks building this thing out. And, I dedicated every freaking waking hour I could to it. Well, the problem is building all that out, I was betting that as soon as I turned the switch, it was going to, bring me in tons of business because that seems just to be my MO. And as soon as I turned the switch, crickets, And the variables is when you do things on your own, it's like being the jack of all trades, master in none. So I can build websites, I can do social media, I can podcast, I can edit podcasts, I can do some graphic design, I can make videos, I can do all these things, but it's not what I do on a regular basis. So like building out that course, it was like 2 weeks for me to build it, which would have probably taken somebody else a day, if not a couple hours to build out. And while I was building that course, I wasn't out prospecting. I wasn't talking to people and trying to get my message out there on coaching. I was dialed into this, trying to get it done because I thought it was going to be the answer. Well, it wasn't. And the problem is the information in the course was fantastic. I don't think I got screwed on it. The variable in it is me. I mean, there's other variables, the content, the image, and the things you put out on Facebook and whatnot. But the variable is still me, and I only have so much skill set to pull it off. And even though I'm usually good enough to get dangerous, there's a big difference between what I can do and what somebody else can do. But the cost or the price difference between what I can do and somebody else can do, especially if you're just starting your business, is astronomical. I mean, it's a lot of money. And you weigh how much money should I put out there versus hiring somebody. And a lot of times you go, I can do this myself until you get it halfway through it. And you're like, holy shit, what I bought off. And you find yourself to a point that where you've got to finish it because it's a mess. But so as you're going about all of this stuff, when you turn your passion into a actual business, all these things pop up and they'll somewhat take you away from doing the things you love, and you're going to find yourself doing a ton of things that you don't because either A, you need to learn it so you can, when you do hire somebody, you know how to tell them what to do, or B, you can't afford to pay somebody else to do it, so you have to do it on your own. Either way it's going to take up a lot of time out of your day to figure out how do you do it, especially if you're in that place where you can't afford to pay somebody. So just be cautious turning your hobby into a full-time thing, because when you stack in operations and business development and everything else on top of that passion, you may lose it. And I don't ever want you to lose it. I want you to keep that passion. So for a lot of people, and some people that I know that have done very, very well, what they did was just create a business so they could fund their passion, right? So now we'll go back to being an artist. If you start a company on the side, a side business, then you can get good enough at that business that you can make money. And while making money, now you can afford to outsource more people because you have a full-time income from your job. And I'm going to bring, the sponsor for this show, Stacy McGovern at Point Blank Safety. It's 100% what she did. She was in a sales role, and her husband was an active duty police officer and still is. Because police officers weren't paid that well, of course, he had to go get a second job, and most police officers do get a second job to, help pay for all the bills and what it costs to live on their salaries. So, and her always seeing her husband having to take all these jobs and the nightmares and the things they went through, Stacy created a company on the side of getting active duty police officers placed in safety and security spots. And the cool thing was that she was a full-time salesperson at that time. She was selling, and in between calls or, on off days or whatever else. I mean, if she went on a sales call and there happened to be a construction company or something close by, she would 100%, walk over, drop off a card with her safety company. And it was how she was able to, after a couple of years of doing it as a side business, she landed a great contract and turned it into a full-time gig of placing police officers in safety and security positions. And now, her business has completely grown up. But she had that security blanket of regular income coming in. Regular money coming in that allowed her the time to build or outsource or, make the right choices because she wasn't 100% on this venture to be able to make non-emotional calls. When I started my business, there was a lot of emotional calls because this was it. I went in all in, and bet on me, which was a great thing. And I encourage people to do it, but make sure when you make that bet that you can cover your ass, because here I was now going to be a speaker, coach, blah, blah, blah. And even being a straight commission sales guy most of my career, now I was in a spot where I had to go sell. There's no choice in the matter. If I didn't sell, I didn't have a business. And, it took me quite some time to figure that out. And as I continued to figure that out, I was able to learn quite a bit, because it's just a different mindset that when you move in that direction, it's a different trajectory. Trajectory, that's a word now, of where you think you're going to go. And the other reason I'll tell you to have a job while you create a side business is desperation sales never really works. You can get some deals done, but sitting across from somebody completely desperate because you've got to feed your family or pay your bills or your rent or anything else, that's a really tough spot to sell from, because you're already in this mental game, and desperation stinks. And people can really, really smell it on you when you're completely desperate. There's certain industries that just reek of shit because it's an industry that doesn't teach people to sell a lot, and there's a lot of turnover because people, once they get past their friends and family, there's nobody left to sell to. And it's tough, really tough. So now we talked all about kind of the ways you can do it. Let's talk about very specifically, what kind of things can you do to grow a side business? First and foremost, let me make this absolutely clear, is in this day and age, in this time that we're in, it is absolutely amazing to me how many people don't take advantage of this opportunity. So I'm going to put it in this perspective, is your grandparents did not get to grow up in a time that you're growing up in right now. When they grew up, there wasn't this internet, there wasn't this phone technology. Hell, half of my life I grew up without a phone, so a lot of my listeners are the same way. But literally with that small little device, your electronic leash, and I only call it that because, people can get a hold of you where you are no matter what, right? That electronic leash is a gateway to the flipping world. Imagine back years ago when your grandparents were coming up. If they wanted to start a business, man, they had to go knock on doors. They had to do a lot of cold calling. They had to hit the streets to grow a business because there wasn't this internet thing. In this day and age we're in now, you can make fly swatters, knit an Afghan, sew a shirt, paint a picture, build a clay pot, do whatever. And guess what? You can put that thing online and somebody from across the world can buy it. It's insane to me how things that have changed so drastically that, I mean, I have clients that I do coaching sessions with that are in other countries across the big pond, and I do it through technology. I mean, hell, if you wanted to start a coaching business back in the day, one, you were laughed at because when coaching practices first started coming out, people, really scoffed at the idea of having a coach. And now the market's so flooded with coaches because nobody wants to work for a living, so now they're a coach. And in a lot of cases, all coach means is unemployable because they can't sell, they can't work with others. They're going to go out on their own because life's just going to be easier on their own, and then they go broke because they can't sell, they don't know how to market, and they don't know how to embrace the technology to grow their business. So, it's just funny to me that more people don't embrace this technology to make life easier. I mean, here's a for instance. Because of the podcast, we've developed that content package, and I don't want to keep harping on it, but the people who help me out developing that content package, they're all over the U.S. and soon to be all over the world with partners that I'm bringing in to help with different functions. Only one of the people that helps me with this content package have I physically met face-to-face and shook hands with. Everybody else is in that same spot of turning their side business into their full business. And I'm just in a cool spot to be able to help them do what I'm doing myself, what I did myself. I'm just trying to help them do it in a safer way that I did it, right? But a lot of people, and I say it's technology and the social media things what brought us all together. I mean, this podcast has introduced me to so many people that have helped me do it. And I didn't know how to do a damn podcast. I had no clue. But I sat down and figured it out. I mean, I didn't know how to do social media. Had no clue. It all comes down to getting in there and getting your hands dirty. And one of the reasons we've done and built a lot of things for our company that we have is because other people don't want to get their hands dirty, which, for my business is great. For their business, it's going to cost them money, which is okay. I mean, there should be things you should be good at, but one of the greatest things you can do to create that side business is to get really good at your social game. Here's a for instance in that. I don't care what industry you want to go in, what business you want to start. Doesn't matter. There is a Facebook group dedicated to that. If you just want to get around other people that are doing it to ask for advice, you can go jump in, find a group that does that, and join the conversation and figure out how other people are doing cool things to grow their business. I mean, one of the things I did when I started the podcast was went and found other podcast groups because I wanted to figure out how everybody was doing that. And guess what? In having those conversations in those groups, I figured out how to do the whole podcast. But that thing to jump out on social is you realize there's groups out there for free that will teach you what you need to do on social media. And some of the pushback I get was, how do I find time? When am I supposed to do all this stuff? And my answer is, how is there not time? For instance, and this isn't to say I'm somebody awesome or anything like that. What I'm just going to walk you through it. So my wife and I were up at 5:20 every morning, okay? And every morning, I got to take care of the farm animals. I got to take care of the goats, the chickens, the ducks, the dogs, the rabbits, the cats. I got to take care of everything. God love my wife, but she is not a morning person. So her routine of coffee, shower, get ready, go to work, that's her thing. I take care of everything else. And we love it. That's just our routine in the morning, right? And in that same vein, I've got to put out my podcast. I've got to, check out content, get all that stuff up and running because I still manage all my stuff myself. And then I've got to go work a full career, right, which is my company. and which means I'm talking to people all day. I'm doing interviews. I'm interacting on social media because that's part of growing my business. I'm reaching out to people to get guests on the show. I mean, there's just a lot of things. And then, I've got to put networking in there, and I've got to put all the stuff in there that has to happen during the day to grow the business, which means at night I'm finishing up some paperwork and everything else. And then I got to go take care of the animals. So there's a lot of times, it's getting to 10 o'clock at night now, and my wife is saying, dude, come to bed. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, if I go to sleep now, I can be back up by 4 o'clock and get more done. And I'm just telling you that as a comparison, that even before I started my own company, we were still up at 5:20, and I was doing things on the side trying to grow my business or figure out what my business was at that time, I should say, and not grow my business, but figure out what I was going to do, up until I'd leave the house by 6:30. I'd go work then a full career, and I wouldn't get home till 7, 8 o'clock at night. We'd eat dinner and, leave me a couple hours to, spend with my wife, then take care of the animals. And there was a lot of times that I was waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to start working on the business. So the truth of the matter is when am I going to find time? That's really on you. It's never a matter of finding a time. It's whatever you're putting off is not a priority for you. I mean, it's really that simple. You're not functioning properly in your time of business, so you're putting that on everybody else, and then putting that on everybody else and telling people you don't have time, that's just an excuse. Right? There's always time. And one of the things that you may find is you just enjoy sleep over work. Neither good nor bad. It's just what it is. And if you really want to go all in, then you've got to start putting in more hours. But let me explain the more hours. The more hours is not just doing the fun stuff, which for some people may be like the social media or talking to people, right? Now, the stuff you got to do first and foremost is the business development. If you're not building a business development plan, then dude, you're in trouble. Because if you can't sell your services, then you better build a system that does all the selling for you, which can be done. And I'm not telling you to go out and create an online course. I'm not telling you to do whatever. I'm saying is you can develop a system where it's all done for you. And, especially with social media day, is you can go big and loud enough that people will come to you. But that system you put in place, you better get really disciplined on your social game. And I get it. You may not understand the social stuff. I get it. That's just an excuse. Go learn it. Go figure it out. Go dive in. Because, guys, the alternative is you can't shy away from this stuff, because as soon as you shy away from anything that you're not good at or knowledgeable about, man, you're just going to get your teeth kicked in, because if you won't get uncomfortable just learning something new, then get really comfortable with where you're staying at in life. And that's another key point to this whole thing is, are you sure you really want to start a business? There's absolutely nothing wrong with working for somebody else. Right? Nothing wrong with it whatsoever. And if you think that you're going to get more freedom because you started your own gig, man, think again, because you're in for it. It's going to be tough. And this isn't to be Debbie Downer. This is just the truth. You've got to put the time in, and you've got to do business development, to get the business coming in. So if I were to go back, and let's put a scenario. Let's say that I was working for somebody else, and I was going to try and create a side business. This is how my day would be structured. I'd get up. I'd go take care of the animals. I would then spend 30 minutes working on my business. And, most regards, that's going to be the social game in the morning. I'm going to get a post out, something out, comments out, everything to get my social game out there. Then I'll go work the 9 to 5, right? And during the 9 to 5, if I'm not in a position to drop off business cards for my business, I'm going to put my head down, do my best, work hard at that 9 to 5, and bust my ass and make sure things are done. When I get off work, on my commute, I'm going to try and make phone calls to people that can do business with me, get the conversations going, get into as many conversations as possible. And then when I get home, probably cook dinner, spend some time with the wife, take care of the animals, and then I'm sitting down and cranking on the business. And that's either putting out more social media content, making calls, sending emails, and not necessarily creating all the websites and all that stuff. I'm doing things that can drive revenue for my business and bring more revenue in. And I'm going to rinse and repeat that 7 days a week, because unfortunately what people are doing on these side businesses that they're trying to create is they're trying to run them on a Monday through Friday, type thing. And guys, look, there's no entrepreneur in the world that works a regular Monday to Friday gig. It is an absolute myth. If you're going to be jumping in the entrepreneur game, you better get really comfortable never having a day off. And that's not even a scare tactic. That's just truth. It's interesting as my family and friends around me watch me on my rise. I'm already starting to hear that, dude, you're always on your phone. I'm like, yep, got to grow the business. The response is now is Donnie put the phone down, and I'm like, nope, growing the business. And I'm going, right? And as I tell everybody, you're just going to have to get used to it. I'm here. I'm in the conversations. I can hear what you say. I'm joining in, but it's 100% forward, 100% going for it. There is no Saturday. There's no weekend. It's all the work day. It's all about putting the time in, because I believe everything's momentum. And if you don't put that time in, you start going backwards. And once you start backsliding, dude, you're in a world of trouble. You're in a world of hurt. So, you've got to keep pushing forward. So, I mean, there's my days, 5:20 every morning, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, with some breaks in there to enjoy dinner with my wife, take care of the farm animals, do some work on the farm, but it's back to the grind and back doing the business. I may spend afternoons with my dad and brothers having a cocktail after I'm done with the day, but as soon as I get back home, it's cranking, getting right back to work. So it's all in, man. It's all work, and it's all about, completely just going for it and really putting in the time. And so I think creating a side business can be really, really easy. I think it's just a matter of really, really putting the work in. And here's the last story I'll tell of this is I remember being in boot camp, and when I first picked up guide, which is, picture just if you've ever seen a boot camp picture where there's a guy carrying a flag out in front of the troops, that's what a guide is. And he's kind of the top guy there by being told he's the top guy, not really by rank, even though everybody kind of reports to him at that point. So when I picked up guide, I'd never paid attention to the other guides and how clean their boots were and how pressed their stuff was. But I knew I was going to have to up my game. So I had, the guy on patrol that night, fire watch, wake me up at 3:00 in the morning to get up and I can spit shine my boots and press my camis and, get everything geared up to look good for the next day. And God, about the third night of him waking me up at 3 a.m, I'm like, screw that. I wanted to sleep more. So then I became a really shitty looking guide with boots that weren't as polished as other guys, camis not as pressed as other guys. And what I just realized in me is my sleep was more important to me than leading a bunch of other guys. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people. Is the truth of the matter is they're internally pissed off at themselves because they hate what they do, and they're mad that this is the career they've chose over the years, and now they back themselves into a wall of making X dollars an hour and can't go find something else that'll make that much money. And the answer is I'm going to go start my own business. but they can't seem to get it off the ground because the truth of the matter is they'd rather sit on the couch, they'd rather sleep, they'd rather not do the work, so therefore they can't make the leap. But really, guys, if you're going to do the side hustle, when I say go all in, I'm serious. When I say go big and loud, I'm serious. If you really want to create a side business that makes enough money coming in to offset whatever you're making so you can quit your job and go full time on it, then there can't be any excuses like I don't have time, I don't know what I'm doing. Because as a business owner, I'm telling you, you won't have time, you won't know what you're doing. And it's the ability at that point to freaking move forward and grab it and go to be able to find that time and figure it out, because there's no one else to figure it out. It's not like you can just hire your way to success, because I'll tell you, I've hired several vendors to come work for me, and I've fired several vendors because I didn't know enough about what I needed to tell them to do for them to be successful. So really, if you're going to try and start this as a side business, whatever it is, then you have got to get ready to work harder than you ever worked before. And if you're like, I can work harder, I'm working hard, whatever you believe hard work is, double it, triple it, because that's what it's going to take to be real. You're not going to find yourself catching up on your TV shows. You're not going to find yourself just hanging out with people and friends and whatnot. You're going to be working, because if you don't work that hard, then you're flat out not going to make it. That's my belief. So start a side business. Come join us in the full-time gig of working for yourself. It is an absolute blast. It's an absolute fun. I'm just not going to sugarcoat what it's going to take to pull it off. So I hope you come run with us in life. I hope you come run with us and create your own business and really start chasing your dreams and going for it, because it is awesome. It's a lot of fun. It's scary at times, right? But it's about betting on you and then really going to work for it. So I hope this helps you out, guys, in your journey as you're running, as you're going. I hope this was some tactical things that you guys can use in your business, and just go for it. Have some fun, let loose, and let's see what turns up. Keep running, guys. I really appreciate it. I love how much you guys are into the show. I really love you guys a whole lot for blessing the show as much as you have and the support you've shown it. So keep going. Run like hell.
Guys, really thank you for listening to this episode. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun putting these together. I wanted to make sure before we get out of here that you knew what we were doing with social content. What we found was, because of the podcast, we have a unique way of helping you get your social content out on a very easy way. What we're doing is we're interviewing people. And from that interview, we will capture a lot of information that will then be turned into videos, memes, articles, all things you can use for your social content. I know, like for me, one of the biggest struggles I had was, what do I put out there? What do I say on a regular basis? Well, we'll help do all that for you. So if this is at all of interest to you, reach out to us and let us help you grow your social media channel. I can tell you I did this for my business, and my social media is completely taking off. My Instagram, since I started doing this, jumped over 10,000 followers, and it continues to grow. So if this is at all of interest to you, check the bottom of the show notes for the link that says, Get My Social Content Done